Howdy folks, and welcome to Kerbal Ironlocke. In this series, we'll be attempting to beat Kerbal Space Program at the absolute hardest difficulty settings. And with all the odds stacked against us, it's going to be quite the undertaking. Now, actually beating Kerbal Space Program is kind of an elusive concept, so we'll just tack it down as going through the research tree and, unlocking to... here. The Rapier engine. Not because I want it, but rather because it's something I almost never go for. Now, some people will say that this is obviously a somewhat silly challenge, because once you get this bad boy, science pretty much becomes a non-issue. Don't worry, this issue is not one, for some reasons that I'll explain now, and some reasons that will be revealed a little later. Let's talk about the mods I'll be using for this run. Firstly is the Environmental Visual Enhancements mod, or EVE, with its default configurations pack. Purely a graphical mod, I've played KSP for more than 700 hours, and clouds are something I've sorely missed. If you've never used it before, I highly recommend you go check it out. There are videos out there of people using the volumetric clouds feature to do some amazing stuff that I've been dying to try out. Mine's not cranked up that high, but it's still a nice touch. Next up, TAC Life-support, a staple of Kerbal Space Program, which I've never used. Nevertheless, the long and short of it is as follows. Kerbals now rely on the basic needs of survival. Without oxygen, they suffocate and die. Without water and food, they die. And without power, they lose connection to the Candy Crush servers and then die. When consumed, these resources turn into their counterpart waste resources: carbon dioxide, wastewater, and, waste. Huh. Paired up with this, we'll also be using a tiny configuration file that allows ore to be converted into CO2, waste, and wastewater for sustainable planetary bases. And lastly, on the mod side of things, we'll be using the stock-alike station parts expansion, which contains a ton of gorgeous station and base-themed parts that I simply had to have for some reason. Get a good look at them now, because we won't be seeing them again anytime soon. Let's get back on track. Setting things up now, we'll be going into the custom settings and maxing out all the cards against us. Funding, reputation, penalties, everything. However, there are a couple of caveats here. Kerbal G-forces are enabled, although setting it at lower values causes Kerbals to instantly black out, so I opted to leave that alone. And as for combat options, playing with these at 0 simply results in probes being entirely unusable, even with the best communications possible, and sitting at the launch pad. So I mostly left this alone, though I set the range modifier to 0.1 anyways. As a treat for myself, I've also left the additional ground stations on. It won't make too much of a difference, but with the cards stacked against me this much, I'm more than needed. For a bit of extra flavor, I've also given myself a near inexhaustible supply of untrained tourist Kerbals, who act just like any other Kerbal under our employment, however have effectively no skills, SAS control, or ability to meaningfully level up, thus are effectively just our most basic pilots. This is mostly to ensure we always have a little green face to bring along with us on missions. The game can be a little boring without them. Some of you might note that this will restrict our ability to hire more actually trained Kerbals, and to that I say, yeah, that was never really an option anyways. Getting started, let's discuss our first obstacles: science, reputation, and money. We start with 0 science, and our reputation is literally -1,000. Without science, we can't unlock anything, and with such low reputation, the contracts we get are few in choice, low in quality, and have even lower rewards. However, those are less pressing concerns than having 0 money. Because of the dire state of our funds, we're forced to work off the basic starting contracts. If we fail a mission at this stage, it's pretty much a game over. Luckily, the immediate starter contracts give us a small boost of initial funding to get our boots off the ground, or on the ground. So, with my contracts in hand, I went to the VAB and immediately realized I'd softlocked myself. The advance on my contracts wasn't sufficient to buy a capsule. Shit. I redid everything, went back to the Mission Control Center, and this time grabbed the 2 contracts I actually needed: escaping the atmosphere, which I won't be able to do for a little bit, and gathering science data from Kerban, which I could do right now. Through careful design and dedicated planning, I created a capsule that I would proceed to walk 3 feet from, jump for some extra science, and then clamber back into. Just like that, the first contract is done, and we've received a hefty lump of starting cash to keep us moving forward. With this starting contract out of the way, we can finally move on to more difficult and prestigious challenges. My apologies. Where was I? Oh, right. With the filler contracts out of the way, we can finally... Okay. Filler contracts, blah blah blah. Now we just... I mean, I guess it's kinda prestigious. So, we have a problem. For the most part, these contracts, beyond the basic ones that have us doing science on the ground, are far too much for us to be able to handle at this point. Many of these contracts would also put us in the red in terms of net funds, so there's no real point in taking them right now. As a solution, I'm going to ignore this problem for the time being, and instead turn to our science and research issue. We have 2 options available for research: Basic Rocketry and Engineering 101. Both are crucial in the long term. However, Engineering 101 provides us with a thermometer and grants us more science. Unfortunately, we're a little short. I could keep doing little missions here at the KSC to get money all day, but without these extra tech tree parts, we'll never get any further. Fortunately, the Kerbal Space Center has a wealth of mini-biomes for me to collect some science from. Thus, introducing the newest form of Kerbal mobility devices, the Roller Mark 1. With a top speed of an exhilarating 10 meters per second and the ride comfort comparable to being on the inside of a soil centrifuge, this is the latest innovation in transportation and style. Now, the eagle-eyed among you might have noticed that there's not a mystery goo unit on here. There's a simple reason for that. I forgot. With this, we can safely and, painlessly go from site to site, collecting EVA reports and crew reports from each mini-biome. Something you'll probably see me doing from time to time here is attempting to obtain flying and structure EVA reports. By jumping with a Kerbal, you can actually contain reports that are quote-unquote airborne at the respective facility or location, and provide a whopping 0.6 science each. Supposedly this can also be done with vessel parts too. It's usually too finicky for me to even try it. I thought I only needed 2 science to unlock the next part of the tech tree, but I actually needed 3, so I only wound up getting 10 reports. Still only 0.6 science short, we got most of it, and we also got 160 funds from doing something. I jumped around on the launch pad a little bit in a feeble effort to get that extra 0.6 science, but it didn't work. So I ran down to the grass to grab that science. This also didn't work. Finally I relented, and brought back out the roller again on the runway. I got the last bit of science I needed, and at last, I could finally get my first unlock of new parts. Oh yeah, I forgot. You still have to pay funds to fully unlock the parts. 5.6 thousand is more than half my current total, so I'll hold back on the communitrons, but the decouplers and thermometer are a real must. Looking at our contracts again, I think it's high time we got this Escape the Atmosphere contract out of the way, and doing so on a budget would be ideal. Now, looking at our parts list, decouplers and flea solid fuel boosters would certainly be more than enough to get us out of the atmosphere with just 3 or 4 of them. But these decouplers cost nearly as much as the flea boosters themselves. You probably already know what this means. That's right, we're cutting out the decouplers altogether and launching with nothing but fleas. We could have done this a while ago, but I forgot about it. The real trick is to activate the next thruster at just the right time to burn off the previous stage, while wasting as little fuel as possible. And yeah, I threw in a decoupler for the capsule just to be safe. Unfortunately, I mistimed the activation sequence, and was just barely short of reaching outer space. No problem, I wanted to bring along a thermometer anyways. By the way, notice how the whole thing wants to tilt sideways on re-entry? That's a strange property of putting a decoupler on backwards. I did it to try and save cost, but it might be more dangerous than it's worth. On the second attempt, I relented and decided to utilize the couplers just to be sure it worked. Whew, thought we were going to be toast for a second there. And I forgot the thermometer. Again. Great. And in the excitement of the moment, I also forgot to take a crew report. Oh well, maybe the first time in space, but it sure won't be the last. And our contract is done. We got a good chunk of cash, 2 science, and another 3 slot for contracts. Let's go back and see what we got. Ah, it's all the same stuff as before. And the penalty to decline contracts is 10 reputation. We're slowly clawing our reputation out of the gutter, so for right now I'd like to avoid incurring any losses. Fortunately, patiently waiting for said contracts to time out incurs us no losses at all. Let's do that now. Oh, right. And we're back. Let's see what we've got here. Oh, I see. Well, this is all still here, and nothing else good. I'm going to go ahead and grab this orbit mission. I'll be doing it sooner or later, and I'd rather not let this contract go to waste. In the meantime... Hey, that looks good. Let's see. Travel 4 to 11,000 meters up at 60 to 190 meters per second. Yeah, I bet I can do this. And that's another contract done. Our cash pool is slowly filling, but for now, I want to focus on my next goalpost. Survivability, the next tech tree unlock for 15 science. This contains, most importantly, the barometer, for more science gains now and in the future. It also contains all these TAC Life-support parts that, I'll probably never use. To obtain the 12.4 science I need, I could go on a massive, globe-trotting adventure visiting all the biomes for all the science I could find. Or I could just roll around the KSC a bunch. I went with that choice. I also finally remembered to attach a thermometer, and at some point remembered that I also had a mystery goo unit unlocked. Nice. Traveling around on the ground like this is a bit of a chore. I'm hopeful to get some wheels at some point in the future just to simplify this process. Despite everything, this was unfortunately not enough. I was only about halfway there. Let's take a moment to address one of the major hurdles that is quickly becoming apparent. Standing in the way of my progression are the current level 1 buildings I'm stuck with. Fortunately, my flagpole is seemingly max rank, but these building upgrades are outrageously expensive, and I'm going to need them to progress. Starting off, for 750,000 funds, the astronaut complex and the ability to perform EVAs in space is paramount to my future progress. Then there's mission control for another 750,000. Additional active missions would be nice, however, this doesn't help me too much right now, so I'm not going to focus on it. At 500,000 funds, the launch pad is another focus point for me. Weight is currently a major limiter in my game, far more than vessel size, and without an upgrade I'll start feeling the burns of this soon. It's also the cheapest upgrade here, but I'm still probably going to prioritize the astronaut complex first. The tracking station is usually an important upgrade, but here we'll be ignoring it for a good while. Same goes for the VAP. I can stretch that 30-part limit for a long time. Which brings us to the hardest part, the R&D facility. 4.5 million funds is nothing to scoff at, even in the easiest of difficulties, and something tells me this first mountain I'll have to cross is going to take tremendous effort. At the rate I'm going, it would probably take years to even get that close, let alone access the technologies behind those upgrades. Luckily, I've got a trick up my sleeve for that, but we'll save it for later. Oh hey, and the administration building's here. Neat. Where was I? Right, the trick up my sleeve. Occasionally, contracts will pop up utilizing parts a layer or so above the player's current tech tree levels, usually being limited to engines or other active parts. Nevertheless, we'll still be able to reach over that 4.5 million fund divide when we get there, and utilize parts just across the gap. Anyways, a pair of groundwork contracts popped up, so I did those real quick. Then hopped back in the roller to scrounge up some more science. I could have sworn I turned off the other launch test ability, but apparently you can go to the island airfield anyways. Neato. 4.5 science to go. Eager for that last 2.7 units of science, I set off once more. We're all the way up to 16 science, and are now standing at a cool negative 994 reputation. Not too bad, I think. Back in R&D, we can finally unlock survivability. I'm going to go ahead and unlock the barometer, service bay, and 1.25 meter heat shield right off the bat. There's some other useful stuff here, but other than the radial mounted parachutes, there's nothing I'm going to need anytime soon. We've got some good stuff going on here. I think I'm going to call it a wrap for now. Next time we'll start working towards basic science for the probe cores and science juniors, and probably also progress basic rocketry, maybe even stability and general rocketry too. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. The road's going to get a lot tougher ahead, but I'm excited to take it on and show the extent of this challenge in full swing. This has been Ironlocke, signing off.
You